as of the last few days, how long has this been going on, by the way? You've been stuck here, how many days exactly?
It has been last Sunday that we requested as Sea-Watch 3, just as usual through our agent, for permission to leave the port. And we have been denied, and this is the first time this has ever happened. We have been operating out of Malta since 2016 without any issues. And yeah, we've been surprised to find that apparently we are under investigation. We have then requested what type of investigation and on which legal grounds we are held here. We haven't received any reply as to the law which is actually applied here. So this type of investigation has been announced, but so far has not really been carried out. We had visits from Transport Malta, but they only requested some copies of certificates, which we have provided them. They also have been in the previous years, they sometimes have been here on board and has never caused any issue. So we have provided them documents, and so far no investigation has actually happened. So would we know what they actually want us to do or what they require, we would be happy to show them that the ship is like technically fit, that the crew is well trained, because we are ready to set out to sea, and we have done nothing wrong. So we are absolutely open. They're welcome on board to investigate as they like, but they actually haven't come here.
Right, on the subject of having done nothing wrong, etc. Actually, these were statements made by the Prime Minister, believe it or not. The captain of the Lifeline is in court over charges concerning the registration of the ship, for example. Do you see that as unusual? Because is there an issue with the registration of a ship? Let's start from there.
It is unusual that the registration is investigated because Lifeline, or that it is investigated now, because Lifeline has been passing in and out of this port as Lifeline for nearly a year, and before we have operated as Sea-Watch 2 with exactly the same type of registration since 2016. So there has been ample time to find any issues with our registration. It is only now, after this case, that Lifeline brought 233 people to a port of safety here in Malta, that they are starting this investigation. So it strikes me as fairly odd, because they knew exactly what we are doing since 2 years, and it's only now that they start this investigation, and to me is clearly politically motivated.
You responded, you were quoted as saying that the decision to stop or to make it difficult for vessels such as this to operate in the Mediterranean is directly contributing to turning the Mediterranean into a mass grave. Could you expand on that? You've obviously encountered a lot of situations at sea. What is the consequence of not allowing NGO vessels to operate right now?
Well, at the moment in the search and rescue zone, there is no civilian vessels at this point, and we follow the news closely of the different organizations like the UNHCR, like the IOM, who are monitoring the situation and who keep track of the movements of people. And we know that in the past 2 weeks since Lifeline arrived here, and the past 10 days, there have been hundreds of deaths in this zone, and that is due to the fact that there is no ships there which can rescue them. So the decision to keep us here in port has directly led to the deaths of people at sea.
I quote from an interview with Maria Pisani, Dr. Maria Pisani, who lives at the university and is of the Integra Foundation. She's quite forcefully said that in the final analysis, the European Union's final solution is to let them drown after a number of other policies have not worked. Would you agree with that? Do you think there's a kind of deliberate attempt to deter people from making that crossing by making it as dangerous as possible?
Yeah. Yes, there definitely is a choice to turn a blind eye, and that choice has been made as early as 2016. And there's even more than that. There's active support, funding and training for the so-called Libyan Coast Guard to hold back people in Libya. So the sole interest of the European Union seems to be to prevent any people from entering Europe without consideration of any human rights or the maritime or refugee laws.
As I said, there are some people who are suspicious about possible collusion between NGOs. There are some people who even think that NGOs are taking money directly from human traffickers, but much more commonly and less dramatically, there's a sentiment being expressed that the work you're doing at sea makes it easier for the human traffickers because they can put people out at sea knowing that they're going to be picked up. And they're considering this to be part of a pull factor. You just have to respond to that.
Well, the facts and the numbers actually show that there has always been people trying to cross the sea, and that smuggling basically exists as long as there is no legal and safe routes to Europe. So people have crossed for tens of years. They used to cross to the Canaries, for example. Then when the Libyan civil war started, this has opened as a prime smuggling route because there was no government control. And smugglers just make money out of people. They never cared if there's anyone to rescue or not. So after 2014, when Italy didn't continue the Mare Nostrum mission, which was actually a mission and the last mission by a state to rescue people, when that was abandoned due to lack of funding, then there was a huge gap in rescue efforts, and people set out anyways. And that was in 2014 when we saw these pictures of mass casualties, when boats, large wooden boats, capsized, and 300, 400, 500 people lost their lives in one day. And that was when the decision was taken by, for example, the head of our organization to use his own private money and buy a boat to do something. So NGO vessels actually came in when the governments, when the EU, when Italy abandoned this rescue zone.
In the meantime, the EU has just adopted a resolution or a plan, a 10-point plan, which seems to focus mainly on containment, as you said earlier, on keeping people from actually leaving. From a point of view, from a humanitarian point of view, people rescuing people at sea, what can you tell me about the priorities of the EU plan?
Well, the priorities of the EU clearly seem to be restricting migration by any means possible. There's absolutely no focus on refugee rights or on human rights. We know from various testimonies collected by big organizations, we just know about the human rights abuses taking place in Libya. So irrespectively where people originally came from when they passed through Libya, they passed through a system of kidnapping, torturing, forced labor, enslavement, and other human rights abuses. And this has been well known since years. And the people in the EU know this. The EU Parliament knows this, and they still continue dealing with the Libyan government on a daily basis.
At the same time, from your description of the state of affairs in Libya right now, it would appear that there is no other alternative but for these people to abandon and to head out towards Europe. Looking at it from a logistical point of view, now I'm only going to speak about Malta. Another argument we often face, this time it's a difficult one to shrug off, is that the size of the country, the resources of the country cannot cope with the sort of influx we are now looking at. Do you see this as a problem? Do you see this as it's obviously going to translate into more ill feeling towards what you're doing? And if so, your message to governments of Malta, governments of Europe, European Union, the powers that be, what would it be in that context?
Well, I clearly understand, we clearly understand that for Malta it would be very hard to receive as many refugees, for example, as Italy has received. But there's a problem really more general, and that is the Dublin system. So we have been long advocating for a change of the Dublin distribution system of refugees, which clearly is to the disadvantage to all the countries in the south of Europe, be it Spain, Greece, Italy, and now maybe also Malta. So there needs to be a fair and distribution of refugees, and there should be solidarity within the European Union on this issue, because this is a responsibility which needs to be shared between all the member states.